This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let's talk about the upcoming draft for the Cleveland Browns, right? This is months away, but I've heard a lot of people already arguing about what philosophy the Browns should go into this draft with. And to me, I wanted to kind of jump into this conversation because I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that you don't just have to do one thing in the draft, right? Every time somebody talks about bringing a quarterback on or for the Browns to draft a quarterback, there's always somebody like, hey, we got to fix the offensive line. The Browns have a ton of picks in this year's draft. They have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, 2 third-round picks, 105, 106, 181, 187, 203, 214, 253. Now, does that mean that the Browns are going to make what looks to be, 11 selections in this year's draft? No. You're not going to make 11 selections in this year's draft. But what the Browns can do is package a lot of these picks to go and target a lot of different areas. So what I want to do is kind of walk through a draft board right now and really get an idea of what it is the Browns can attack and how much and where the Browns are going to be able to attack the different areas of needs that they're most likely going to have by the end of this season. So let's start here. So let's look at this draft board because this is the thing that I find interesting about this year's draft. Some position groups I think you can do a lot with. Some position groups I think the Browns will struggle to find players. Wide receiver is one of those. Tetor McMillan's the best wide receiver in this draft class. I don't think he's top 5 prospect good, but he'll probably be a solid mid to late first round pick. The same could be said with like Emeka Egbuka. I'm not a big fan of Isaiah Bond. And then you got some guys smattered in there. Xavier Restrepo I like. Jalen Royals I like. But it's not the strongest class in the world. Last year's class was much stronger. The year before its class is much stronger. But I don't think the Browns are going to go into this draft trying to get a ton of wide receivers. I think there are 2 positions that matter for this draft class for the Cleveland Browns. And I think these position groups aren't as weak as they've been advertised at, right? Because when we talk about offensive line class, we're usually focusing on how good the offensive tackle class is. The Browns, depending on what happens with Jed Wills, not Jed Wills. No, definitely not Jed Wills. Depending on what happens with DeJuan Jones, may or may not be in the major market for a tackle during this year's draft class. What they're really going to be looking at is interior offensive line. And I think there's some room to play here because I think there's a lot of guys in here that are interesting. Parker Brailsford, center out of Alabama. You got Tyler Booker here, Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State, Tate from Georgia. And then you go with the offensive tackle class, and a lot of these dudes are probably going to be guards instead of tackles, right? Cam Williams, probably a guard. Maybe Emory Jones, probably a guard. So that's going to be interesting to see. I think there's going to be, Gray Zabel. I think he can play guard from North Dakota State, right? Like, there's going to be a bevy of options in the interior for you to go at 35, 69, and 94. And I think that's where the Browns need to attack the interior offensive line. We'll see how this shakes out. The Senior Bowl really is where the offensive line class at least starts to take shape because it's the one opportunity I think everybody gets to kind of look at these guys individually instead of having them kind of buried in other things. I don't think this is a great linebacker class. But let's look at quarterback, right? Right now, the rankings are a little bit crazy. They got Cam Ward at 2, Shedeur Sanders at 3, Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Lur, Jackson Dart, Curtis Ward. In this class, Cade Klubnik as well. In this class, I think there are a lot of quarterbacks that I would deem draft worthy. right? Cam Ward is most certainly worth a draft pick. Shador, obviously. Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allure, Jackson Dart, Curtis Wark, and Cade Klubnik are the ones that I'm like, yeah, I would draft them. I wouldn't mind drafting one of those guys. Now, that doesn't mean I love drafting each one of these guys at the same level, but it does mean that those are the quarterbacks I would deem like pretty much worth a draft pick, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that those are the only guys that will get drafted. So Jackson Dart, you know, you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 quarterbacks in this class I think would be worth the draft pick. And then if you kind of separate them into tiers, I think the first round guys are Shador and Jalen Milroe. Somebody will take Cam Ward in the first round. I would not be somebody advocating for the Browns to take Cam Ward in the first round, but somebody's going to do it. So these three are going to be first round picks: Shador, Jalen Milroe, Cam Ward. If Jalen Milroe falls to the second, I take him in a heartbeat. In the second round, I take them instantly. I think that would be a win. I even consider trading up to 32 to make it happen. Then you got your mid-round guys, right? Your third-round prospects. Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck. Now, these two could easily slip into the first round. I know that some people feel like this quarterback class is down. There's not going to be as many draft picks. If enough teams are desperate at the quarterback position, I promise you this. As much as it doesn't make sense, they will talk themselves into Quinn Ewers in the first round. They will talk themselves into Drew Allure or Garrett Nussmeier or Curtis Wark into the first round. Now, Curtis Wark in the first round, I don't think would be the worst thing in the world if you take him like at the end. But like, yeah, some teams going to talk themselves into it. Like Quinn Ewers might go in the first round. Carson Beck might go in the first round. I can see a world where there's 5 quarterbacks that go in this first round. I don't think that should be the case. I think there's really only 2 quarterbacks I would feel comfortable taking in the first round. That's Shador and Jalen Milroe. But if you measure the strength of the class by how many quarterbacks get selected, very easily could you see 5 go in the first round this year. I would categorize Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allure. Well, I would say Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allure, Curtis Wark. Those are dudes that I would absolutely not mind second, third round. Right? Those guys. So Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allure, Curtis Wark. And then you got your fourth round guys, right? Your day 3 guys that I think would still be worth the draft pick. Jackson Dart, excellent play action quarterback out of Mississippi. And then you also have Cade Klubnik, who I think is interesting and I want to continue to watch here. So those are the quarterbacks that I have an eye on and I kind of like think are going to be draft worthy in this year's class. It's not, I think this class, especially like if Drew Allure goes in this year's class, if Drew Allure and Garrett Nussmeier, for whatever reason, feel like there's some smoke there in the first round for them, which might be the case, and they go in this year's class, that 2026 draft class is going to stink at quarterback. Right? Expect that there's no Milroe. If Beck goes, if Ewers goes, if Nussmeier goes, if Drew Allure goes, it'll basically be whatever you hope Arch Manning can be. And I don't know. Because here's the thing about the 2026 class and why I think I'm going to end up recommending that the Browns take a quarterback this year as opposed to 2026. Because this 2026 class, it does not look great. Arch Manning is there, and his last name is Manning, and that gets people excited. But we really haven't seen Arch Manning do anything. And if Arch Manning does do anything, let me tell you, if Arch Manning demonstrates that he can simply walk and chew bubblegum, he will be the number 1 overall pick. If Arch Manning demonstrates that he can breathe and throw a football forward, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick in 2026. Like, So even if you're factoring in Arch, it's only useful if you think you're going to be the worst team in the NFL next year. And I know cynicism is running rampant in the Browns community right now, given how the season is going. But they're not going to be number one overall pick bad next year. At least you would hope they're not number one overall pick bad next year, with as many veteran players that they have returning. So Arch Manning, I don't know about that one, right? Like that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Nico Imaliva, not a big fan of him. He does not throw the football very well. He does not seem like he has the traits that you would want, and he's played a full year here at Tennessee. Dante Moore is the third prospect. He ain't even playing right now. Y'all want Aiden Chili's? Jackson Arnold? Like, this class looks dreadful, brother. Dreadful. This class looks awful. Ty Simpson is in the top 10 with 12. Now, the draft class, I think you want to make sure you have a chance to get into if you don't have a quarterback is 2027. But that's a long ways away. And here's another reason why I'm not for drafting a quarterback in 2026. One, that draft class looks like it's going to stink. I understand the appeal of maybe getting Arch Manning, and him being a Manning changes things. But look at the college career of Eli Manning. Look at the college career of Peyton Manning. It's not a guarantee that Arch Manning even declares for the 2026 draft. It might be the case because he has all the institutional security of being a Manning that he decides, hey, I'm going to play 2 years of college football before I graduate and go to the NFL. And if that's the case, since he's not worried about money or cashing in when it's important, he might be in the 2027 draft class. So imagine if you waited out to get Arch Manning and he doesn't even declare in 2026. And then you're left with Nico Amalaya as the number one prospect. I'd rather draft a quarterback in 2025. Because if you draft the quarterback in 2025, you get the 2025 season and the 2026 season to know if you hit on that guy. And if you did not hit on that guy, you could swing back around to this 2027 draft, which is going to be a pretty loaded draft at the quarterback position because we have some interesting prospects. Again, Arch Manning could be in this draft class. It's not out the realm of possibility. And I would say it's more likely than a lot of people want to give it credit for that Arch Manning is in this draft class. He has not played a full season yet at Texas. I imagine he's going to want to get a lot of playing time under his belt before he goes pro. And I understand his family probably understands the importance of that. You also have Dylan Raiola, who will be in this draft class, another guy who's been in the number one pick conversation, right? That's guaranteed to happen. DJ Lagway out of Florida will likely be in this draft class because he's already starting now. Those three right there, those are potentially three game-changing prospects at the quarterback position. So if you go in 2025, not only is the pool deeper at quarterback, in my opinion, but you also get a chance that if it does not work out, to dip back into this conversation and try to get a quarterback in 2027. That would also coincide with the end of Deshaun Watson's contract and when you get free of Deshaun Watson's salary cap restrictions. So you would also be able to immediately build around whatever quarterback that's there that you want to build around. This, to me, is why taking a quarterback in 2025 versus 2026 is a smarter play. It gives you more options. I don't trust that 2026 class because, again, it's all built around Arch Manning, and there's no guarantee Arch Manning's going to be in that draft class. And even if he is, he's going to be the number one overall pick in that draft class. So it's not like he could fall to you at 7 or something like that, or you could trade up for him. This draft class is going to have, in 2027, it's going to have 3 guys that I like in the first round. Already, who knows who develops within these next 2 years and includes himself in that conversation. But I'm pretty sure that Dylan Raiola could be there. I think that Arch Manning might be in this draft class as well. And then DJ Lagway. So there's a lot of different options for you to get a guy there in that draft class. And I think there's a lot of options for you to get a guy in 2025's draft class. I think there's going to be a franchise quarterback that comes from this year's draft class. I think there's going to be a couple that come from the 2027 draft class. So I would take my shots in 2025 and 2026 for those specific reasons. Now let's get back to looking at the draft board, right? Because I just want to highlight some players that I do find interesting that are on the draft board. I'm not really here to do a mock draft yet. Just want to explore some players and get some players on your radar while college football is still going for you to watch. Harold Fainin Jr. Look, the Browns community online loves this guy. I like him a lot too. If you have a chance to watch Bowling Green play, check out Harold Fainin Jr. I think the Browns should really consider drafting him if they get a chance. I know a lot of people like Tyleek. I know a lot of people like Omar, Norman Lott out of Tennessee. Quarterback-wise, Will Johnson is a top-tier corner. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Travis Hunter here. Denzel Burke is somebody that's interesting. If Andrew Berry is still the general manager, you know that they're going to draft a corner here. And running back, this is the year to take a running back. Ashton Jeanty is incredible. Quincy Junkins is a great prospect here. Ollie Gordon is another one I like. I like Travion Henderson, Nick Singleton. Like, this running back class is full of really good players. Really good players up and down this class. I think there's going to be a lot of sleepers in the late round, too, of this class here. The edge class, I've heard some good things about. I haven't really gotten into looking at this class, but the fact that JT Tumaloa is at 37 in this class tells you that it's not a weak class at all. So that's kind of what I've been looking at, what I've been thinking about when it comes to the draft and the players I'm thinking about and why I'm thinking about it the way I am. It's important to remember that you can address multiple things in the draft. Just because the Browns take a quarterback, or if the Browns take a quarterback in the first round, doesn't mean that they're going to neglect the offensive line. And vice versa. If the Browns draft the offensive lineman in the first round, it doesn't mean that they're going to neglect quarterback. It doesn't mean that they're not willing to trade back into the first round if a quarterback falls to a spot that they feel like they can get to. The Browns are going to try to address as many of their flaws as possible in this year's draft because they're not going to have a ton of space to spend on free agency. They'll have some money, but not a ton of money. And they're going to want to be able to utilize these draft picks as efficiently as possible. So that's why I think the Browns draft strategy is going to be. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.